the sound of the police in my hood.
What's up, everybody? We are definitely on CP time. Welcome back to the greatest show on YouTube with your host with the most, Emperor Atheist, and my man, Nate Brody and Dragnot. I'm hearing an echo in the back. Somebody got an echo in the back. Somebody has an echo in the back. Is that Nikki or is that Drag?
I don't have an echo.
No echo, okay. Well, I hear an echo for some reason. I don't know.
Yep, man, that might be you.
Not really. Is that me now? Do you hear it now? Okay, that was me. Welcome back.
Pull a JD Kane. We got it. Before we start, man, you got to explain some. We got some folks in the chat who don't know what CP time is. We got to explain that.
Okay. CP time, for those who don't know, whatever rock you've been living up under, means colored people time. That's what CP times mean, people. So this is brought to you from Colors People Academy. We have a special guest tonight. Those who are not familiar with her, please follow her Twitter. Her name is Skeptic Nikki on Twitter. She is tonight, most definitely, the fourth Black Heathen in our podcast. So everybody give a hand and a round of applause for Skeptic Nikki. And she just reached 30,000 followers on Twitter. So I'm going to, and I don't know, Nate, maybe you want to play a clip first before I really finish introducing Nikki, or what? What did you want to do, Nate?
All right, so we have a clip of Nikki doing some work real quick. So let's hit the clip, and we'll come right back and talk to Nikki. So give me 1 sec. Boom. So here's a clip of Nikki doing her thing.
A lot of people have various opinions about gods and things like that, and they want to force these on other people. And I think it's important to remind them that they can't do that. And if they feel the need to do that, then they need to start demonstrating if that's true or not. And when you approach it from that standpoint, they kind of change their attitude a little bit to, well, I do want you to believe this, so maybe I should start thinking about what are the reasons I could get you, to start changing your mind. Because I just tell people, well, that's your opinion. God's real. That's your opinion. No, it's true. Do you want me to feel that it's true? Well, it is true. Well, can you demonstrate that? I don't have to. Well, then, in that case, it's just kind of you sitting there by yourself. And that's how you...
Yeah, and you believe you.
Yeah, like, that's... Yeah, I like you. Be crazy by yourself. Like, you can be sitting... It's like...
I know I've said to...
So that was Skeptic Nikki doing her thing, explaining why. So, Nikki, so tell us a little bit more about that clip. Like what was going on there?
Well, we were discussing how people have a habit of forcing their religious beliefs on others. And I have that happen a lot to me living in the South, and I hear a lot of people who are very confident in their beliefs, and because of that, feel that other people should latch onto them as well. But the problem with that is no one's proceeded to demonstrate them as true. And I was just highlighting how that's a problem for me, and it should be a problem for others, even though it doesn't seem to be as much as it should.
But you know what? Like we hear a lot of times we kind of talk about how it seems like in a black community, religion has such like a strong hold. For instance, something like 80 or 90% of African Americans believe in the Christian God and have this such a affinity to it. So how does it, from our perspective, because we're three black guys, but as a black woman, do you feel that there's any type of backlash to a Jew for not believing in these things?
I feel that people are surprised when I tell them I'm not religious. I One thing that I notice is that being an African American woman, when other African American women interact with me, they automatically assume I'm religious and that they interact with me in a religious way. For example, in my last job, I was in the bathroom, whatever, at work, and a coworker came in and she said she was dealing with something, and I said, "Oh, I had a stomach ache that day." And she said, "Well, honey, I'll pray for you because God, prayer always works." And I was like, I don't believe it does. And she was like, "Prayer always works, honey. God is always there. God is always listening." And I'm like, I don't really see evidence of that. But do you have any like Tums or anything? I feel like, that would be helpful. That's actually happened a couple of times with people trying to pray for me when I have stomach aches. But they naturally assume that I'm religious. I'll get invited to like women's conferences at people's work or their church, like women at church will invite me. And I have to explain to them I'm not religious. And you probably shouldn't be either.
You probably shouldn't be there. Let me ask you this, Nikki. I think I've seen in some of your videos or sayings, well, specifically, I know I've seen this on some of your Twitter, some of your tweets. You came up in as an evangelical?
I did. Non-denominational.
Non-denominational.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But even evangelizing was a huge, a large motivation of the church I grew up in.
Does your parents were basically non-denominational evangelical?
Yeah.
So how did you step away from that and become Skeptic Nikki? How did that particular, how did that come about? How did that happen for you? And how hard was it?
I've never really, I'll say the church has always seemed odd to me. The dynamics within the church that I grew up with, it never seemed like the people I interacted with were very genuine or that I could trust them. It never seemed like the God that was being presented to me really cared, but was really more of a punisher or like an impending father figure, kind of like my own father. Right. So it never appealed to me, that whole idea, first of all. But religion in general has always been forced on me. And it's always been explained to me that the things that I observe, that God's the reason for all of those things. And while that wasn't necessarily an issue for me, the church I grew up in was. People were very rude. They were very judgmental. They were not accepting of you as a person. And it was disheartening for me because my parents seemed to value their relationship with them more than they did with me. So that always put me in a position of not liking the church, because I always saw it as like a wall between me and my family. And I still do, but rather than the church itself being a wall, I see now the belief itself being a wall between myself and my family.
Right.
But when I was younger, a lot of the things that were said to me didn't really make sense. I was 10 years old. I asked my mother if people actually go to hell forever. She said, "Yes, they did, honey, forever." And something just said that's not true. It just didn't make sense.
The devil said it.
The devil, yeah, it was probably the devil. But that's probably what she would say. But
so you don't think Jesus turned water into wine? You don't believe that?
I always thought those were kind of just really fun stories. Like one thing I've always felt was that Christianity was kind of a cliquish thing that people use to impose their will on others. And I always felt that it was used to impose my parents' will on me. And whenever I was in trouble for something, I would always get a Bible verse thrown at me, or every time we would have these long conversations where we'd be sitting in their room and they'd have these verses out and they'd be reading to me. And it always just seemed kind of like something that was used as an element of control. So it never seemed like it was a genuine thing, more of something that people were depending on for them to control me and also for them to get through life. They seemed like they had a lot of, they both grew up in impoverished homes. Both sets of my grandparents are alcoholics. Both sets were abusive. And they were they were impoverished. So being impoverished African Americans in the South, it makes sense to me. My parents were religious.
Right.
But it never seemed to me, it always seemed kind of like an obligation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it never seemed really genuine, and it still doesn't to me.
It isn't. It's bullcrap.
So what do you?
Yeah.
So when because there are some people in the chat that had mentioned something that I was going to bring up, is that what about the people who just say, well, you just had a bad church experience? Because I've had a bad church experience. We've all heard that. Like I've heard that I don't know how many fucking times. I'm dead serious because I've been in all types of churches.
Right.
But the one that stands out to me is my cousin's church in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it rhymes with Felt Chapel. And so it's Black Pentecostal. And so people say, why do you say Black Pentecostal? I said, look, I've been to Pentecostal churches before. Black Pentecostal churches are something fucking else. These people played this possession game that I call the Holy Ghost tag, where in the middle of a sermon, right, somebody would get was tapped or infiltrated, or I don't know what the term is. A spirit would jump into them. I'm assuming a benevolent spirit.
I was going to say, was it consensual? Because that doesn't sound
no, here's the weird part. I don't think so. And here's because somebody would get up and they was in the choir band, whatever thing in the corner, would start playing this music. It reminded me of the theme song from Beetlejuice. And so people would start get up and running around and start doing laps. I'm like, I'm amazed all y'all are fat. Like, how do y'all stay that size and y'all are doing this every Sunday? Like,
because they eat after.
I know, yeah, no, they go to Red Lobster and Golden Corral and Outback, man. But shit, they get up. But then the weird thing is that they'll go and they'll touch someone and supposedly they can transfer the fucking spirit. And so then that person gets up and they do a lap. So we're playing relays with spirits here, with spirit possession. And I'm like, I'm only like a level 20 mage. I need to be level 25 or 30 mage in order to get the possession transference spell. I can't do that. So that's the weirdest shit in the world to me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I think there's just something fucking wrong with the people. But this is a church that my family's grown up in, or part of my family. And so one of my younger cousins approached me. I was like, yeah, if you don't catch the Holy Ghost like everyone else, you're going to hell. And I'm looking at her like, bitch, I don't want that. Like,
guess I'm going to hell.
Like, what? Who wants to be involuntarily possessed by a spirit, go lose control of your body and run around a church and pass the fuck out? That doesn't sound like fun. I can shit myself. I don't know. Like, who wants that?
Yeah, I don't know. We make it a joke about it, but it's really specifically for Black people. I think and we always talk about this on our show a lot, Nikki. I talk about it on mine a lot. It's really a sad state, though.
It is.
Our people, and I want to go back to what Nikki said, what you said about how your grandparents were impoverished, and this religiosity. There's been so many Pew studies over the last 15 years. I always talk about these studies of the correlation between poor people, specifically poor Black and Latino people, and religion. The poorest people on the earth are the most religious, spooked out people on the planet. The richest people on the earth are people who are basically irreligious and more scientific minded. So this is particularly, what we were trying to figure out, besides normalizing atheism and trying to basically fall into a big, and I always tell all of my white fans this, I tell all of my, because some people ask me, why do you consider yourself a Black atheist? Or they even ask us, why do we call this show 3 Black Heathens? I said, because specifically for our people, it's really a danger zone a psychological steep hole, it's like a psychological couch that we are really up under worse than any other group. And stats show this. So the thing is, how do we, and from your, I don't know how long you've been, irreligious, Nikki, or atheist, but what do you think would be, because we like to get different people's perspective, especially from another sister. What do you think would be a good starting point to get more of our people to be more scientific minded? Not even necessarily getting away from religion, but just to be scientific minded. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the issues that comes along with being impoverished is that you have to work harder. And when you're working harder, you don't necessarily have time to engage in like pet studies, like science, scientific study, philosophical study, things like that. Moving African Americans from one social economic status to another would help. But when we start to talk about that, we have to talk about the systemic limitations that we have. Mm-hmm. And that is going to make it very difficult. There's so many issues. Oh, wow. This issue is so multifaceted. It's not even funny. So I listen, and I mention his name all the time, but Dr. Robert Sapolsky is a professor of neuroendocrinology at the University of Stanford. Mm-hmm. And he's been studying basically the effects of hormone release on generations over time. For example, if your grandmother had, substantial issues maintaining her nutrition, then your mother was more than likely born with a system that retains calories more, right. Because the fetus thought when it was in the mother's womb that outside of the womb, there's not a lot of nutrients. So they were holding on to it and they developed this system, and they're at a larger rate for diabetes or have a higher risk of diabetes, heart disease, and things like that. These are issues that continue throughout generations, and they can contribute to other problems like health issues, which can add to issues of poverty, because if you're sick, you can't work, and things like that. So there's a lot of issues. One thing I'd say, we have to people have to feel like they can make it on their own, because the whole reason people who are poor like God more is because they have no control. So God gives them this false sense of control. And that's a big, huge thing with African Americans and Latinos. God is this basically their extension of what they wish they could be. And
it's like a crutch.
No,
it's
he's a savior. I'm talking about. Let's call it what it is.
Like a bodyguard.
He's a savior from the situation that you live in now. Like you say, if you're poor and you're in Chirac and you're seeing people die.
That was a horrible movie.
Yeah, but no,
I hated that movie.
But what the point I want to make is that the Christian story is one of not redemption here on earth, but everything is going to after you die. And I think that's the thing that's so powerful when it comes to poor communities, is that, hey, no matter how much you're suffering now, no matter how much the police are going to kill your people, your reward is after you die.
Heaven.
And even though that's the powerful thing about Christianity, it's also the dangerous thing about it, because it makes people, it makes this life worth nothing. It's really what you're doing after this that's worth something.
How do we reverse that though, Nate?
That's actually, before we go into that, to actually add a little bit of something to what Nikki said, and I will never forget this moment.
Yeah.
I listened to, I happened to overhear my aunt speak to some of my cousins many years ago. This was also in Fayetteville. And she said, don't worry about, and we're on our way to school, don't worry about making good grades. Don't worry about doing too good in school. The end of times is coming anyway. You just you guys worry about getting right with Jesus, and that's all that matters. And I will never, I'm paraphrasing, but I will never forget that at any point in my life, because that stuck out to me. She wanted them to forget about actually achieving academic, not even academic greatness, just meeting the standard. It wasn't important, because as long as you get your pie in the sky after you fucking die, that's what matters. And it's like, How can you concentrate building generational wealth, leaving beleaguered neighborhoods, or doing anything like that if you are stuck with the end of your life and what you might get after you fucking die?
So one of the issues concerning that is that when things are uncertain, people don't tend to think very long term. They're thinking more day to day or paycheck to paycheck, month to month, things like that. She probably didn't see the benefit in her own life of having an education or any type of knowledge. So she was teaching them the same thing, which is unfortunate. She herself was hoping that the uncertainty would end by Jesus coming and saving her and ending all of this and then taking her away from it. So since that gave her some sort of peace, she was trying to pass that on to them or to you. And it's damaging because it's not accurate. It's not scientifically accurate. It's very ignorant, but it falls back on the uncertainty that comes with being impoverished. If you can't make it day to day, you're really not thinking month to month or year to year. So that has something to do with it. As far as your question of what we can do to reverse it, with African Americans, our history is incredibly tumultuous, and we need some type of foundation to stand on that is independent of basically our horrible history. And that's hard to establish because we are what we were created to be. We're the descendants of slaves, and we're not valued in this country. And a lot of us feel that, and it takes away from our self-efficacy and our sense of self-worth and our ability to improve our situation as a whole. Not that there's nothing that can be done. I think about this frequently, and I honestly don't know. I wish I don't know. The issue is the roots are so deep.
Well, you know what? That I expected that particular answer because a lot of us don't know. But besides, I think philosophically speaking, and hell, just scientifically speaking, I think time will eventually take care of it. I don't think we will be wiped out. Nate just mentioned Chirac. I hate those negative type things, but it's true. You look at Chicago, look what's going on in Chicago, it's terrible. Not only Chicago, but look what we're doing to each other around, the country. But, besides those particular self detrimental acts that we do to each other, I think, me personally, like I said, besides time healing, when I mean by time, I'm talking about maybe another 100 years, 200 years, because we do know for a fact that time kind of, the zeitgeist always changes and moves and it improves on a lot of things. But besides that, I think the main thing is like you said, and this is the thing that I tell a lot of atheists, black and white, as far as why not only black people, but white people, Latinos, and why we hold on to religion so much. Because basically, non-religious entities, non-religious groups, not only do we not have the numbers yet, we don't have the basic foundations that people can believe something like the church. The church is something, it's still a pillar in the black community. People need clothes, they need food, or they need a preacher to go talk to, even though he might want to molest one of their kids or something, but still, it's just a fact. But still, it's something people can go to the church. The church still is a foundation. There's always been a strong foundation in the black community coming from Jim Crow. So what can we do as atheists, irreligious groups, as far as nonprofits or anything, where we can say, hey, we ain't got to get no church, but I think it's something that we can do besides just say, hey, we don't believe anymore. I think it's something that we can do. We can start
activism.
Well, yeah, hold on. Imp, I would say this. There is something we can do, but the problem is that will it be effective? Like even my situation right now, my brother just did 10 years in prison. Right. And he just got out. Now, you guys know all my accolades, and my mom had the nerve to tell me. She was like, I'm more concerned about you because you don't believe and you're going to hell. Now, I'm like, you're more conservative about me. Now, I have an advanced degree. I'm saying I'm certified in the state of New York to practice law. And it's like, are you really serious? Are you more worried about me making 6 figures a year than you are about my felon brother who just got out of prison? And she says, yes, she cries for my soul and not for his because he believes. And that it shocked me because
you were shook.
Yeah, I was shooketh. But you know what? It surprised me she said that. And the reason why it surprised me she said that was because it showed me how ingrained religion was, to the point where I help her every month. I do all this great stuff for her. You know, he's been away for 10 years. And even at this point, she's more concerned about me than she is about him, the guy who has no job, the guy who can't get a job now. And it really shows you how our community is really attached to these ideas. And I think sometimes you can't confront these ideas head on. Sometimes it has to just be a chip away process. But now, again, my question would be, what can we do that's effective? Because this is indoctrination to the highest degree, if you know what I mean.
So I've pondered this, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine, Alicia, and it's such a multifaceted problem. There is no one size fits all solution. Of course, there's no monolith Black community, so there's no monolith solution that you can just blanket over everyone. But in most cases, it starts with education. It starts with visibility. That's why I personally made it a goal to say, you know what, when I get to a platform, and some of you all know, I've been on Billboard. I've been on, right now I'm on a school website. And so people know who I am. And so when people talk to me, I make it very clear when the topic comes up that I am not religious. My accolades are my own. And I got to where I am. I'm going to where I'm going because of the help of real physical people. Because I have a support system, not because of some magical entity putting its tendrils into the universe and selecting me. Boop, you're special, Calvinist time, none of that stuff. That's not how my life works. My life works with real people and real support. Now, of course, Christians are involved in that, but I'm not going to allow people to co-opt my success for their beliefs. And so I think that, and I've played around with this idea in the back of my head, the time that I spent as a child and as a young adult, adolescent, whatever, that was spent in church, spent learning biblical stuff. What if that was spent learning mathematics? What was that spent learning, just if you replace all of that, I would be in such a better position. I mean, it was just, what if we radically change every subculture of African Americans and replace the majority of the religious nonsense with something academic? It could be even liberal arts.
Drag, do this. Take us on to topic for the night about how science has impacted the Black community and science literacy, because what you're saying goes right into that topic. So let's hit the actual topic for the night.
So let's talk about that, folks. So we're going to and we were supposed to have a Christian on here who is an advocate for science, but he's a Christian. I've spoken to this guy before. Unfortunately, he won't be able to join us. We'll probably get him on later. And I've talked to a few more. If you are a Black Christian and you're not fucking stupid, and you do want to talk about this topic, because I had to add that caveat in because a lot of stupid people. If y'all want to come on, please do, because I'm going to try and play devil's advocate the best I can. Someone's going to try to be as fair as we can. But I see at every corner, at least in my experience in real life and on here, that there's an impasse between religious belief and being scientifically literate. It's almost like you can't be both.
Yes. And if you are, you've got one hell of an issue regarding compartmentalization. And that's what gets me with people who will say, I'm scientifically literate. I believe in evolution. I understand these things, and belief in evolution is ridiculous. You either understand it or you don't. But what I tell them is, okay, so where does it end with you? Is it because you can't explain everything? Is that it? Because that tends to be where it ends with people. And we definitely need to increase scientific literacy in the African American community. I would love to see that. I want to start something myself, something along the lines of a scholarship fund for kids who are wanting to go in a STEM field. Mm-hmm. Because we really need more of us in STEM fields. We're not well represented. No. And we need to also get kids interested in these things. Science is incredibly fun. You get to understand all this stuff about your environment. When you start to know how things actually work and start appreciating the physics behind it and understanding what's actually happening around you, it's not a feeling of despair. It's just a feeling of awe. And I really wish people could experience that more.
I do. And Yeah.
Go ahead, Dre. Go ahead,
I was
Dre.
gonna say, and of the three of us, we all have a different area. Nikki, my area is science. I'm actually in school right now, getting a bachelor's degree in biology with a concentration in cellular, molecular, and biotechnology. And I
Nice.
can tell you, there's very, very few black men in my class. Very few. I'm usually 90% of the time, I'm the only one.
Hmm.
And it's, I mean, I do see, fellow brothers walk around. It's mostly black women though in my classes, and
Oh,
they're leading the charge, if any. And then of
nice.
course Indians. But so I'm learning Hindi. I already see where that's going. But it's interesting because I'm not sure where the interest is going. I think that people, and I don't think it's specifically a race thing on some level. I think it's a confidence thing because there has to be a support system. While I'm in
Right.
school, I'm fortunate enough to have the GI Bill and I get paid to go to school. But doing a
Nice.
lot of these classes takes so much time. Doing these labs takes so much time. I wish I could show you the receipt for the books I just bought, and that's not even. It's half a grand, just with
Nice.
materials alone. So
Okay.
it takes a lot of resources to do this, and I don't think that there's enough backing in our communities. There's not enough focus on trying to lift people and try to support the people who have the skill. And here's where I might get controversial. I think that there is this kind of Dubois-esque, I should say,
Is that an
mentality.
Empire reference?
No. I wouldn't directly try to make an Empire reference,
Oh,
but
okay. Because I
but
was like, that
it
was the
is.
last name of the extremely affluent African American.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that they took the illusion from W.B. Du Bois. I mean, that's
right.
that's where the reference is from. But
Sure.
there's Du
Yeah,
Bois had the
I picked
concept,
up.
and some of y'all might have heard of this, the talented tenth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Yes.
think I think that a lot of, and that's probably why. If you're not familiar with Du Bois' talented tenth, I'm going to ham-fistedly explain what it is. Du Bois had the idea that you take African American communities, the top 10% performers, the smartest of the smart, the best of the best. Those are the people we lift up. Those are the people we emulate. So a
And we
lot of
support.
people, yeah, we support them, which that's not a terrible idea.
No, that's a great idea.
I
Right,
think it's an excellent idea, actually,
but
because
here,
And I think that tenth should not procreate with the bottom 90.
see, and
Hey,
there we go. The wheat from the
just,
tares.
just,
There we go.
just keep it real. But I want to. But you know what? We need to do a show and bring Nikki back just on the Dubai 10. We need to do
yes,
that
that'd be
because I
awesome.
think that's important. We're gonna make a lot of black people mad. Who cares? But
Why? I
listen,
have this conversation with my one of my girlfriends. We talk about forming communities all the time.
yeah, we can't keep procreating with the bottom feeders. But listen. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a minute though, because I also went to school for physics myself in my colleges. I went to Georgia Tech. I had a free ride. I had a football scholarship, and I had an academic scholarship at Georgia Tech for physics. My concentration was in astrophysics. But at this particular time, I was a believing theist. I didn't attend theology school until years after. So I have to say that we got to keep it 100. Got to keep it 100. There are, y'all might not believe this, there are plenty of scientists. I'm talking about PhD scientists that actually believe in some type of God.
Mhm.
Now you might say, well, how can they do that when they reach a certain level? But I have to say this,
Compartmentalization.
I have to say this though. The National Academy of Sciences, the NAS, okay, which is the elite group of sciences. We're talking about biologists, all the highest chemistry, evolutionary biologists, astrophysicists, physicists, all of the high elite scientists in the NAS. The atheist percentage is over 95%.
Of course.
Atheistic. Now that's kind of strange to me. But now when we talk about people who are not particularly just scientists, period. The last study I've seen, there's a big, major percentage of scientists, just of all the natural fields, that actually believe in some type of theism, or maybe a deism. And you might ask, well, why is that? Well, the thing is, religion, I think we still, even as atheists, even though we've kind of shook it, I think we still we underestimate the power of religion. Because even me studying, and Richard Feynman was my favorite physicist growing up. I used to love his teaching. And I actually when I went back home to LA, I actually got to meet him one time. But
Oh.
it's almost like no matter what you learn as a theist, even if it contradicts your religious worldview, you automatically cognitive dissonance or something even stronger than that blocks it out. Like, oh, well, this still could be real because I've seen so many people. I'm talking about these are real scientists. I've seen certain scientists actually try to explain, well, this is my religion. I believe in the Bible, but I think the Bible cosmology probably could fit what we believe to be modern cosmology today. So it's still a cognitive dissonance even among certain scientists, even though majority of physicists, big top physicists, like I said, NS, they are atheistic. But Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about this a few years ago. He said that it was strange to him how even when he was talking about NAS, he was saying it's strange to him that even the other percentage, the small percentage, the 5 or 6% that is not atheist or agnostic or irreligious, he say, how do we even get that big percentage of people with those high degrees being religious? So, I mean, I guess, but the religious psyche is real strong. It's stronger than what we think.
But
it's ignorance.
But let's not forget that there's a critical thinking component to this too. I think when you become more educated, you start thinking critically about not only cause and effect, but then also relationships between things. And I always find that when I took science classes and the procedure in science, verifying things, evidence, using the evidence to verify that things are actually what they are. When you start taking those same principles and applying them to your everyday life, then things start opening up for you. And I think everybody in here, that's what if religion had the type of candor that science has, and we're able to put things down, like if somebody was able to bring some evidence to prove God exists, we'd be having a whole different conversation. And I think that's the difference between, because I know some uneducated people who are atheistic, but I think their critical thinking skills have been maintained. So I'm not sure if the education and religiosity are as connected as we think. But I do agree that I think when people start thinking critically, that's when you have the issue.
Yeah.
I think that it has a lot to do with the level of ignorance that a lot of people have. Even though people may have high degrees in science, there's still a number of things they don't have answers for. Right. And we have a problem with that as human beings. We're an inquisitive species. Our brains are quite large, and we navigate our environment by learning as much about it as possible. And when we don't have answers, we try to create them. And one thing that science does, while it does educate you, it just produces more questions. The more I read and the more I learn, I'm amazed by the way this planet works, by the way I even work. Sometimes I just sit around and I'm like, what the hell is even happening? Like, I'm just kind of woke up here and I just open my eyes and none of this even makes sense.
You got to give me some of that stuff you was taking, because I want that to happen to me.
It was just, right. It's just, sometimes if you have a drink or if you smoke or if you're just feeling relaxed on a rainy day, you just think and you start to just ponder, and you just don't, you start to wonder, where did all this come from? And our brains tend to go towards, there's a boundary, the things you can explain and the things you can't. And that's where people get caught. Well, everybody's reason for being religious is I don't understand.
But let's not forget though too, even though the topic of this is about the black community, Christianity, and science and literature of the black community, I don't really think, even though I think science is religion is a big piece of it, we have a whole conservative block of people who don't believe in climate change, who don't believe in all these things that don't really have anything to do with religion. And I think, like I always say this, I'm from Harlem, and I always say there's so many churches, there's a church on every corner. And if these people didn't believe the Republicans were racist, they would be voting Republican all the time, because they don't believe in evolution. They are really, really heavy into God, and the only reason why they don't vote for Republicans is because they think they're racist. That's really the only reason.
So they've been tricked by Democrats.
Yeah, they've been tricked, exactly. But what I'm saying is that those same people would also tell you that they don't believe in something like climate change, which I think is less tenable to religion than something like evolution is. So what do you say about that idea, about there is some other underlying effect other than religion, because these people don't believe in things like climate change, which doesn't have that tag to religion?
I have family members like that are Republican, weirdly enough. Go ahead, Amp.
But I think y'all forgetting the underlying thing, Nate. when you say that these not only blacks but these whites too, especially Southern whites, Republicans,
in
say
Midwestern,
they don't believe in evolution or they don't believe in climate change. A lot of this is still religious based. They don't believe in evolution because they believe in a creation story. A lot of them. So you still, a lot of the mindset is still wrapped around religion, which shows it still comes back to them being basically anti-science, even if they're subconscious of being anti-science. When we bring something scientific that isn't written in the 66 books of the Bible or something that they Bible school teacher didn't mention, then of course they're going to reject it because it's still going to come to a psychic back to religion, even if it's subconscious. Because when you think about religion, man, you think about religiosity and you think about science. Even though science in the church used to be joined at the hip, we know this historically, but we know eventually, century after century, and most of the top scientists over 500-600 years ago were basically Christian. Mm-hmm. Don't we talk about Newton and a lot of these people, but we know century as time went on, science and religion, they separated, and they separated big time. And I don't think, some people think that science and religion can coexist. I don't believe it, not in this day and time.
They can't, and they shouldn't.
It's too contrasting with each other. But just going back to what you said, Nate, I think you look at the Republican Party, man. The Republican Party, all through its history, well, the Democrat Party too. I don't put no party against either because both of them are the same to me. But all of them at least since Kennedy has been actually trying to throw in some type of theocracy. Donald Trump just doing it more affluent with Pence. They actually, they doing all these different things to actually bring about this theo-democracy or whatever you want to call it. But it's always been there. So the ignorance with Black people not accepting certain scientific things is still, I think, is religious based.
I would say I don't necessarily. I believe with a lot of people it's religious, but with all who don't accept climate change and evolutionary theory and things like that, it could honestly just be ignorance in general. Humans have the tendency to apply agency just naturally. This is something we do starting very young. And I've been reading a book by Joseph Babolia. He's a professor at the University of Auckland, and he wrote a book on the cognitive study of religion. And he was stating statistics or research that indicated that children apply agency to things just naturally, such as, why are the trees here? They're here to sing, or not the trees, but the birds. They're here to sing for us. And how did they get here? Well, God made them or something made them. And I think that because a lot of people, especially in the American education system, aren't really taught how things work young at a young age. This goes back to what Nate was saying about critical thinking skills, because we're not really taught how to think critically in the United States, as evidenced by what the hell is happening with our government. And just what's happening in the education system is really, really bad. But we're not taught how to think critically. So when you should be moving out of this age of ignorance around 11, 13, it just continues into adulthood because people aren't taught how to think. So It may not be religion. It could just be supernatural ideas. And people tend to plug in the supernatural where they can't understand the natural. So I think, honestly, that it just has to do with just a culture of ignorance in the United States. People are just stupid. People are stupid. And it's sad. It's just really sad. The United States has a lot of stupid people. And we really have to start teaching critical thinking, how to work through things, you see.
You get a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions about many things. And I have conversations with people about, for instance, climate change was one of the topics. One of the Christian gentlemen I was speaking to, I think it's Hermes something, at Adventist or something. I can't forget his name, but he has very strong opinions on climate change. So I said, okay, so where'd you get your information from? Oh, well, I watched Prager University. Excuse me, bro. Huh?
Who?
Huh?
Prager?
Prager University.
A conservative think tank, and I use that term lightly.
It's not a university.
not an actual university. They call themselves that. They get several pundits from. It could be anywhere from a baseball player. It could be
Baseball player?
it could be a baseball player. It could be a guy in marketing. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. They put him in a suit and they put him in front of a camera and he reads the script. And I mean, it's very well edited. It's very well set up. It presents as not too long. It's not too short. It's usually chocked with information that they have, but it's usually really, really biased and a lot of times cherry picked information. And so, if you're not familiar with anthropogenic, anthropogenic
Right.
climate change, human caused climate change, then you're not going to be able to see what they're getting wrong with this particular presentation. So I
Right.
went and I listened to it. I said, okay, this is interesting. This person here doesn't actually understand the difference between weather and climate. That's kind of an issue if you're talking about climate change. And so I said, okay, again, if you don't know the difference between the two, it's hard to spot that. So I said, okay, can you, after you educated yourself on this, because I said, all right, the guy claiming he understood it. I said, what's the difference between climate and weather? Silence. Had no idea the difference between that. I said, don't you think that's a little important? I said, well, I kind of, sort of. So I said, bear with me. If this guy, and I'm listening to what he's describing, is talking about weather, and you don't know the difference between weather and climate, could you be potentially misinformed on this topic? He said, yeah, okay, possibly. I said, okay, so that poses an issue there now, because when I had originally asked you, where you had got this information, I specifically identified me using peer-reviewed sources, me going to not just your meteorologist on TV, one day, actual, like I said, anthropogenic climate change studies. And you said that you've read absolutely none. And so for him, that wasn't important. What was important is that somebody that from a source that he trusts gave him some information. So a lot of them, many of them, are not even at the position to vet sources. They don't even know how. Right. So that poses a huge hurdle for those of us who are in science, and especially people who are in science communication and science education.
But it's so.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say it's so confusing because listen, I used to be a young Earth creationist. I thought evolution it was bullshit. I'm telling you, I was in it, and I felt two things. I felt, number one, I didn't have access to the correct information, and I just had people always reinforcing my bad beliefs. Like when I went to church, evolution is bullshit. Yeah, we all believe the same things. And when I went online, I would look for people who would think evolution is BS. I wasn't trying to actually figure out something new or figure out why.
Confirmation bias.
Exactly. And if I have most of the people who I care about and who I love telling me that what I'm believing is true and correct, that's a real heavy hurdle to overcome. So you're not just talking about educating the individual, but you're also talking about educating maybe a community, so people can even if you don't change their opinion on this one topic. I think if you change their way of thinking, then you would do more in the future than trying to change their ideas maybe on this one topic.
I agree.
Because you have to change the community's perspective, because a person is not more than likely not going to change their views if they know they're going to receive some type of societal backlash from it. And that's one of the reasons it's also very difficult for people to leave religion, especially in the African American community, because most people aren't thinking like that. And they're thinking, how am I going to replace my social network? And where do I find people who think like this? And are they going to be as, supportive as my family or others who are close to me? And that just shuts it down automatically.
Yeah, and I think that.
Go ahead, Dre. Go ahead, Dre.
I was gonna say that's why I said visibility is very important. That's why when people say I'm full of myself, I said no, I got a goal in mind, man. I got a goal. That's why put me up on that billboard. I let people know. Yeah, I did that. Yes, you got damn right. I let people know what I'm doing, because it's like they see me up there. They know that, and I have to tell people all the time. My family's very religious. We just went to a barbecue at my cousin's house. All held hands, and I was like, whatever. I held the grandmother's hand who got dementia. She's talking to herself and all that. But everything's cool. We can do that. That's fine. That don't offend me too much. But they know when it comes down to it, I'm about my fucking business. I'm about trying to actually help people who want to be helped. If people want to find a way out from under their religious ass parents or family situation, there's a way out. I'm doing it my damn self. The people who support me are religious, and I let them know you got your beliefs and I got mine, but what I'm trying to accomplish goes beyond petty beliefs. It goes beyond, well, I don't praise the deity, because even within them, the Pentecostals don't agree with the Methodists and so on, Southern Baptists and so on and so forth. So, if you can set aside, petty beliefs for a larger goal of helping to edify people, then it can be applied to a much broader scale for someone who doesn't have beliefs.
Right.
Absolutely. You know what? That kind of about what did you want to say something, Nikki? You was gonna say?
I was agreeing with what he was saying.
I didn't want you to lose your thought. But just going to what Drag just said about holding his grandmother's hand. He didn't have to mention all the dementia stuff, but but just going on that. I tell a lot of people this too. Even though I would consider myself the way you see me on my channel, the way you see me on Three Black Heat, that's basically I am my family. So they kind of look at me as like a comedian. They know I'm a straight atheist, but they look at me, they kind of just avoid me now. But everybody can't do that. Everybody can't do that. So I tell a lot of people hit me up my email. I have thousands of emails I haven't even got to yet. People say, well, Emperor, how do you, I'm in a closet atheist. How do you have black and white? Hit me up. How do I want to tell my mother? I want to tell my sister or brother. And I tell a lot of time, or I'm scared to talk about it on the job because I might get fired. I tell them what don't talk about it on the job. If you feel like you might get fired. Is there somebody that say something about Jesus? Just agree with them if that's the case. I say everybody don't have to be outright just gangster with it. I said, and with your family, I said, kind of if you feel like your family will cut you off, some people write me and they'll say, I think my mother might cut me off. I'm in school. My father, if I told him I was irreligious or agnostic or had an atheistic type thinking, they would. I said, well, just ease it into them. Don't. A lot of people are in a real people who are on the fence. I would say they have a lot of issues with how to break this to their family. They might tune into us. They might follow you on Twitter or follow me and follow us, but they're living double lives. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's kind of a bad thing too.
It is.
This brings me to a particular point. A lot of people don't like to talk about this, but I like to talk about it. And that's basically the suicide rate among atheists. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's kind of like a bad thing. A lot of people don't talk about it, but it's not really necessarily atheistic a mindset of why they're killing themselves, but it's an atheistic mindset. And this brings me back to my original point. We need more programs where people can come, because when people some people they stop believing in God, they give them religion, they feel like, well, man, it ain't no God listening to me no more. Ain't nobody listening to me when I'm going through hard times. I don't believe in this bullshit, so I can't go back to believing in it because I think it's fake. So a lot of people we don't have enough hotlines where people can talk to.
Hold on for a second, man. People saying they can't hear you.
They can't hear me?
Hold on. Let's take a break. Can you put up a card real quick, Nate, so we can see what's going on? Because like 5 people saying they can barely hear Emperor.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. You done broke the internet.
Huh?
You done broke the internet, man. What you do?
I broke the internet.
Yeah, broke the doggone internet. Okay, hold on. And they said now they can hear you.
G-Man.
They hear me or they hear you? Do they hear me? Can they hear me?
Yeah, they said they can hear you now. Yeah. Nikki, you said G-Man? Oh,
please. I keep seeing him mentioned.
Okay, don't just ignore it. Every time somebody say G-Man, just pretend you don't see that.
G-Man is a mental turd. But yeah, we need to. I think we need to just, and and this is another thing about the atheist community. We're not some monolithic community either. There's a lot of atheists there's a lot of atheists who don't believe in climate change. So believe that or not, so we have atheists on both sides of that view. It's not. So it probably would be more religious people who wouldn't accept it, but there are atheists who are on that side of the other side of the argument too. But I just think we need more out. I guess I can use the term outreaches. You know what I mean? Or something where people can say, hey, I want to talk to. I need to call Drag. I want to call Nikki and hey, I want to call that. They got something we can go to. Give them some
like
Kool-Aid.
Heathen hotline.
Give them some Kool-Aid. You know, give them somewhere they can get a hot pocket or something.
Oh no.
Hey, man,
Hey, you know what? Every other week, people come and meet me around Houston. So you know, I try.
You're in Houston.
I am in Houston.
I used to live out there. I love it. I love it.
I just moved down here about a year ago.
Man, I love it. No, I have an idea for that. I just don't know how I would fund it, honestly. Because I would need funding for it. It takes
that's
time.
why you go. That's why you go to nonprofit organization.
Right, but I mean that's it. I would have to find funding for that. Like
we'll get Creflo Dollar to fund it.
Oh,
we're gonna get Creflo and TD Jakes. We're gonna tell them that it's something about Jesus. We're gonna put Jesus on it. Then we're gonna drop the Jesus once we get the check.
Too close to home. And I don't even want to talk about that, man.
There's a few atheist outreach programs. Heavy Hauler does one in North Carolina. I can't remember the name of it. I know Matt Dillahunty has one.
Yeah, Matt got one breaking up.
Matt Dillahunty has. I know Recovering from Religion Foundation. Daryl Ray's.
You talking about Dan Barker? That's my partner, Dan Barker.
Yeah, Dan Barker.
Yeah, Dan Barker. They Dan Barker don't even have law. I interviewed him a couple of months ago on my channel. They even have lawyers, to help, with people.
I used to volunteer with them.
Who have? Oh yeah, I love Dan.
I love them.
People who have problem with religious in school or any type of religious bullying. They got
Freedom from Religion. You're thinking of Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Freedom from Religion.
Recovering from Religion has a hotline and a chat.
Who is that? Who is Recovering from Religion? Who is that?
That's Daryl Ray's program. They have, it's excellent. They have people, you can schedule time to chat, or you can call in and chat with someone.
But before, I don't want to stop you. Can we put some of this stuff in, Nate? Can we put some of the stuff in the link so people can go on it?
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
And before we end this broadcast, we got to make sure people find out about Nikki.
I posted her stuff.
Oh yeah.
I posted her stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. but so we don't forget, Nikki. Tell the people where they can find you and let us know what you up to.
So I am, of course, on Twitter, Skeptic Nikki, and I also own a T-shirt store called Thinkers Only, and you can also follow Thinkers Only on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. And the URL for Thinkers Only is thinkersonlystore.com. And we have atheist T-shirts, secular T-shirts, scientific T-shirts. I'm trying to add new designs every week. I just added a design this past week about, rational cat finds I can't even remember. Is not impressed by your irrationality. I just added some mugs. Some people wanted some mugs on the site, and I'm just in the process of getting it structured the way I want it to. I'll be lowering some prices, kind of changing the way things are to get more people to buy some shirts. And I also want some more unique designs too. So if you also are a graphic designer and don't like to charge a lot of money, please call me or don't call me, but hit me up on Twitter and let me know, because I need some help with that.
Hook you up with Monty.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hook up with Monty, man. Yeah.
I need some help with that. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Skeptic Nikki. You can also find me on Thinkers Only on Twitter and thinkersonlystore.com, and where you can go buy some shirts.
And after the show, all those links are going to be in the description bar below. So
and y'all make sure y'all go support this sister too, man.
Yeah.
Go buy some of these shirts, man.
Yeah, especially, yeah.
even if you're Christian, believe in Allah.
Oh, yeah, we have shirts for everyone. I've got shirts that aren't atheistic, that anybody can buy. A lot of people like the Credible Hulk always checks his resources shirt. That's the most popular.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's everybody loves that shirt. So there's shirts for everybody, no matter if you believe.
I don't know about that. Ain't no shirt. I don't even like having on shirts half the time. So ain't no shirt for me.
Last week, Imp had to watch him. It was like, yo, what happened to your shirt, man?
You just weren't wearing a shirt?
I usually don't wear shirts in my videos at all.
You're shirtless?
Yeah.
He's a nature guy.
They make me put on a shirt every time I come on air.
Why?
Yeah, we're trying to
You
be
just don't
professional.
put
Get a
on
lot of, we're trying to get rich off this show. I told him he can't go service.
I'm trying, like, we can't put it on Pornhub, but I'm just saying, we could just do an outreach, shirtless episode. I'm just throwing it out there.
The shirtless
I
atheist.
think okay, well, I would need all of the royalties from that. All of it. So yeah. But
one thing I did want to ask you guys a question. Is interesting, and this question it stumped me when I was asked it by a Christian, and they asked me. They said, well, you talk about thinking skeptically and being critical about things, but she presented it to me like this. She said, well, if we were all, let's say if you had 1,000 people and they all saw something happen, even though each one of those people may have differences about the story, you would still agree that some event happened. 9/11, if you're talking about 1,000 years, and you have all these people who said they witnessed this event, or even if you're just with 1,000 people who witnessed the event together. So they were saying it's just like that's how she was considering God. Like 96% or 97% of the population believe that there's a God. So everybody's experiencing the same thing, but they may all have differences about what that thing is, but all of them agree that this thing exists, billions of people. And how do I feel being in a minority? Because it's almost like everyone's saying, well, we see a goat, and I'm one of the 5 people out of 100 that say I don't see anything. Who are you more likely to believe? The people who see the goat, the people, or even though if they disagree with height or weight or whatever, or do we just agree with we side with the 5% of the people who say we don't see anything? And it stumped me because it made me, even though it's an argument at Popular, I definitely understand that. Yeah. So it's a fallacy, but there is we can't get trapped up in a fallacy just because it is a fallacy means it's incorrect. So how would you guys have responded to that? Because I did, but it was just a little choppy for me.
With sidestepping the obvious point that it is fallacious, I would say, well, look, a number of people saying that they experienced this is, I would say, normally a pretty remarkable thing. And usually, just like colloquially, you could say a bunch of us saw a movie and we say it's good, and so then it's natural for somebody who hasn't seen the movie to go, this movie's probably good, without anything else other than these people's words. But when it comes to religion, it's something different. And I would say if you're going to compare the two on any scale, the disparity between what we're actually talking about is literally the two furthest things that you could have: something that's mundane, something that could be easily observed and experienced, versus something that literally can't be, because you're telling me that people's anecdotes will inform another person's anecdote to something uniquely that they've experienced in their life. No two Christians have experienced God in the same way. If you ever listened, and I love listening to Christians' stories about how they experienced God for the first time, I've never heard the exact same story. Now, if all of them were exactly the same, I would be amazed. That to me would be amazing. But it's always this post hoc rationalization that what I experienced was so great, so miraculous, it had to be God. Every single time, like clockwork, it's like that. And they will literally eschew any other possibility and immediately go to that. So when I hear that, well, mostly people believe this, well, yes, most people have rationalized their experiences to come to that conclusion.
Well, we know what God is. God's just a misperception of what's happening around us. And the fact that most people believe in a God doesn't tell me a God exists. It just tells me that humans have something in common that predisposes them to believe in it's natural. It's neurologically, biologically based, and we need to understand what that is. And that's why I'm trying to understand the cognitive study of religion, or study it more, because obviously we understand the belief in God is ubiquitous. Okay. So we know there's no evidence for a God. So if there's no evidence for the God that's causing belief, or there's no God causing it, what actually is? And when we study how Homo sapiens evolved, and we understand how our brains came to be what they are, and all of those things, it teaches us more about why most people believe in a God. And when we also look at how the God belief is dispelled, that teaches us about it lets us know that there's really no supernatural aspect to it. I just say the general thing I've seen is ignorance. And I posted something a couple weeks ago along the lines of, you know, God isn't real. You just believe in God because you don't understand how shit works. And a lot of Christians commented and they were upset. And I'm like, why are you upset? I'm right. Why do you believe in God? Well, how did this happen? How did that happen? How did this? And I'm like, okay, so basically you're validating my point. You believe because you just don't know how shit works. And that doesn't mean that God exists. It just means you don't know. And God is just basically an ever receding pocket of ignorance. And just like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, and the more we understand, the less we have a need for it, the belief.
Really. The almighty God of the gaps.
Well, you know, I want to answer that because like Drag said, and Nikki just said something great too. And then I guess we can get into the N-word if y'all want to. But I want to say this. I want to say this on that, about this group thing. Besides the very valid point that its relation is from the real. But there is a such thing as group hallucinations. There was a study done, matter of fact, Dr. Henry Gator from, I think Henry Gator was out of Yale, I believe. I think Sherry Colbert did this study some years ago. I don't know if y'all remember this thing, but it's like, and I know a lot of people say, well, is that counterintuitive? Because basically the hallucinations is like a individual thing. Well, not necessarily so. Now, as far as God, I've never heard a lot of people say, well, we see God. That's just never happened. But as far as like the Virgin Mary, I know y'all familiar with this Virgin Mary that be crying sometimes. Like 1984, you know, there was a group of people that was all Catholic. These all Catholic people. No Christians saw it, no Muslims ever saw it. Just all Catholic people saw it. But there was a whole group of them. They saw this in 1984, and they actually saw the Mother Mary crying. But the thing about this is, when we're doing sociological psychology studies like Dr. Herbert did, one person can interpret something in a group, and everybody just say, oh, yeah, you're right. Like 5 people say, man, I saw this UFO. Okay, I saw, well, it's called a UFO for a damn reason. It's unidentified, you damn dummy. Okay, you probably did see a damn UFO. That don't mean it's a little green man inside the motherfucker. So you saw Mary cry, you thought you saw Mary cry. Okay, that still doesn't predicate that God is real. She had a damn virgin birth. So like Nikki said, I mean, if a group of people told me that they saw God, I mean, first of all, you know, the Bible or whatever God they claim they saw, I don't know what God it would be. Would it be Christian God? Would it be Allah? Would he explain that? I would have a lot of questions to ask these people, like, who was it? Was it Zeus? Was it Odin? I mean, was it Thor's father? What God was it? Did he say who he was? So what predicates? What God would it predicate? So it's kind of like it's really a stupid example she gave. I don't know how it stumped you, Nate, being as smart as you are. I don't know how that happened.
Well, just let's not forget there was a back and forth too, because there was responses. Like one of my first responses was, obviously it's a you know, this is not only an argument from ignorance, but it's an argument out popular just because a whole bunch of people believe it. You know, the majority of people believe the Earth was flat.
But that don't make them wrong.
No, I agreed. But I'm saying the majority of people believe the Earth was flat at one point. If you go back to 99% of people thought the Earth was flat, that didn't mean they were correct. That just means they didn't have enough information. So in other words,
we can't always go with the consensus.
Yes. So I do agree with that, but there were even the argument that Drag had brought up, to retort that, you know, we always say, you know, if one person sees something, and I'm just talking about a one-on-one interaction, you saw something miraculous, I'm less likely to believe you than 1,000 people. But if we're talking about 1 billion people, then how many people have to say they experienced something for us to believe it? We're talking about billions of people. I'm not talking about 1 or 2 people or 1,000 people on the street. We're talking about billions of people have some type of experience and attribute it to this particular cause. Now, I do agree. Billions of people in the past did believe the Earth was flat, and they were wrong. But that was kind of our interaction. Our interaction was, you know, we put people to death for less. If we had 10 people say somebody shot somebody or somebody killed somebody, we would put that person to death. But now, you know, if they're saying that they believe this particular concept, we say, well, we don't believe those 10 people. But then if I put 1 billion people that say they believe it, we still are skeptical about that. So that's what she was trying to play on the fact of where does the skepticism actually end? When is it rational to believe a proposition when not many people will believe it?
But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you have 1 billion people who are Muslims who pray to this black box in a called the Kaaba who say the Christians are wrong and that Jesus Christ endowed the sin. Then you have 2.1 billion people who believe in Jesus. Then you have a sect out of the 2.1 billion Catholics who believe that Mary is the God of Jesus. Then you have other splinter sects outside of that same 2.1 billion who don't believe in. Then you have creationism under that same sect. Then you have Hinduism, that's another billion that don't believe nothing. Now one of those other two, or Islam. So,
but he was talking about God belief in general, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I wasn't talking about the specific God belief. I just thought it was an interesting argument that you brought up. Go ahead.
I was just making my point that it doesn't work because if we got over a billion Muslims who believe in Islam. So that means I'm supposed to be Islam. But I have more than 1 billion people who believe in this fake mythological Christianity. So, well, no, since it's more Christians than Muslims, then I guess I should be a Christian. That don't make sense. It's just a bad argument. I think
that was my mother's argument. And then I told her Islam was increasing and she...
Yeah, well, she retracted. It's been the fastest growing religion for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, you could simply say, if it's like, what, you know what, just for the sake of argument, I'll accept that. But so if the tide changes and more Muslims become the predominant belief,
then...
Are
you going to change?
Yeah, are you going to change your position? Well, no. Okay, well, then why do you expect me to do it? So, you know, it is interesting to play those games and to go along with the thought experiment. But once you fully explore it and you know, start doing some internal, external...
Exactly. I tell you what. Just to extend on the point Dragon just made, and the point I made, let's go back to the 1st century CE Common Era. I don't like to say AD because it's a bullshit term that plays Jesus Christ bullshit. But let's just go back to the 1st century CE Common Era. Now think about this. This is when this Christian myth first began to. It's nothing but a subculture of Judaism, right? That's all Christianity is. It's a subculture of Judaism that was basically trying to go against the rabbinical law. That was trying to go against the Sadducees and the Pharisees and go against ancient Judaism. So Christianity was born in the 1st century. But think about this. If we go back to the 1st century, where Christianity was not even, say, 30 people, just starting off, say 100 people, 500 people. The religion of Apollo was much bigger. The religion of Mithra was still thriving at that time. These were the majority of religions. The religion of Mithraism, worship of Apollo, even some of the Greek, even though Rome was ruling at this particular time, even some of the Greek gods were still being worshipped. You know, Aphrodite, Zeus. So we could use that same logic and say, well, let's go back to the 1st century. And just because the majority believed in Aphrodite or Apollonius, should we have followed those particular religions or Mithraism? So it doesn't make sense in when you look at it from all those particular angles.
Well, then their argument would be, well, what actually persisted? The word of God and Jesus is now, you know, the most popular. It's all nonsense. But I just tell them, most people believe in God because Homo sapiens they try to apply meaning to things. We do that to understand our environment. And there is no deity. It's just us stuck here in this tiny little corner of the universe. And we're trying to make it work. We're doing the best we can. And we're just coming up short. And believing in supernatural, and the supernatural is not going to help us get ahead. We really need to just focus on scientific research and progression and put all of our resources into that if we want to stay around. That's kind of it. That's really it. And I mean, it's just general ignorance as far as I'm concerned. People are just ignorant.
Well, let me transition on to this last segment because we're doing our Keeping It Real segment. And Nikki, this is your first time here. We do like word on the street, keeping it real. So this is something that happened early this week. So
like Dave Chappelle.
Like Dave Chappelle, that's true. So, but this is perfect for Dave Chappelle's skit. So the guys have seen this, Nikki, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see it, but you'll hear it. Now, this is a campaign ad from what's this guy's name again? What's this guy's name?
Kyle Green.
From Kyle Green. He's running for state. He's running for like one of the state legislative positions up there. Now this is his campaign ad, and you guys will hear it and see it, and then we'll discuss. So
this is a real ad, too, people. This is not fake.
Yes. I thought it was a joke.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I thought Nate, you were fucking with me.
This is no joke. This guy's serious. Hold on.
Hi, I'm your neighbor Kyle Green. I'm running for District 18A State Representative. I'm not asking for you to vote for me as your leader. I'm asking for you to vote for me as your public servant. The primary duty of a state representative is to protect all the rights of his constituents. I want to be your state representative, I want to be your public servant, and I want to be your nigger.
Yes. Minnesota. Well. Just to give you a little background on our man, he is supposedly half black, half white. He supposedly has some Cherokee in it, and go ahead. And yes, yeah. That's true. That's true.
Obama's last like White House dinners.
Hold on, hold on for a second. They can't hear nobody. Hold on.
Can
They
you
can't
guys hear me now?
Everybody's muted. Nate,
Everybody.
Nate, I think we're all muted. Okay. All right.
Okay. Did they hear Nikki? Did they? What
No,
did
they didn't hear Nikki.
Yeah, say what you were saying, Nikki, because I don't think they heard you.
Yeah.
I just was trying to understand his thought process because I understand that's going to get him attention, but is that going to help him achieve his goal? Oh, hey, my girl. All right, my friends in the chat. Hey, Session.
Hey, Sasha, whoever Sasha is.
Oh, I was talking to him earlier. Yeah.
Sasha, yeah.
I feel bad because I can't. Can they hear me?
Yeah, they hear you now. Yeah. I'm watching the chat.
Shout out to Sashin, by the way.
Hey, over
there. No, they can't. Okay, they stopped. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, that's
weird. Thinking we're talking to you too. But I don't know if y'all remember it was one of the close to last. I don't think it was a correspondence dinner. It was just a White House dinner they had, and I can't think of the comedian name, Dragon Nate, but comedian he was talking, black dude. He was talking. And most of the White House dinners, mostly white people, but he got up and he told, he did his little joke thing. He said Obama was his nigga. He said it right there at the White House dinner.
I think it was Key from Key and Peele.
That's who it was. No.
It was the guy from Key and Peele.
Was it?
I think. I'm gonna Google it. I'm finna Google it.
Yeah, he called Obama a nigga in front of everybody, and it was like, people talk about it, say, oh, that wasn't cool, and Obama didn't give a fuck. Obama was like,
Oh no, I was wrong. Larry Wilmore.
That's who it was.
Larry Wilmore. He's on the Daily Show, I think.
Yeah, he called Obama. He said that my nigga. He said da da da. Did he hugged him? Obama got up and hugged him. And some people try to make a big deal about it, but they stopped talking about it. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe Kyle Green is on some type of mindset like, fuck it, we own this goddamn word now. It was started off as some type of, it was
said nigger.
Yeah,
he said
I know. Maybe he's not hip hop enough in Minnesota. Instead of saying, I mean, the Ebonics play. I guess people. I don't know.
Let's let everyone know the difference between the ER and the A. When someone says nigger with the ER, that's what they said in the South. That was the slavery. That was the stupid slave. That was the nigger. Nigga is the term of endearment that we use nowadays to, you're my nigga, not my nigger. You're my nigger, that means you're my slave. You're my nigga, you're my homeboy. We cool all that time. That's the difference.
Y'all hear a lot of Mexican dudes calling each other that?
I can't believe we trying to semantically divide these words up.
No, because you know these people in the chat be like, oh, what's the difference? What's the ER? ER, he just said something about an ER. So you got to educate sometimes.
Words change, context changes too. I mean, that's your language. So y'all hear me sometimes. I will say nigga every so often. I do say it not as often as a buddy of mine, but I will depending on the context when I'm not code switching. If I'm code switching, which will be another episode,
please bring me in on that one.
I can't tell you how many conversations. Drag, you speak so well. I was like, oh, I love when people. I can't get enough of people saying that. Well, it's a compliment. No, it's not.
No, it's really not. How do you expect me to sound? That's what I always ask them. Like, how do you expect me to sound?
Yeah, no, we're having a whole episode about that because people have asked me, Drag, what's code switching? What I'm doing right now. That's code switching.
Yo, matter of fact, when was the last time anybody in here has been called a nigger with the ER?
Like to my face?
Year.
It would be dead.
Like to my face or online?
Like you know, I'm not talking about even online. Let's say to the face. Yeah, because I'm called a nigga all the time. Every time I see a cat from the hood, yo, what's up, my nigga?
I think I called you nigga the other day.
Not nigger though. I'm like nigger.
No, no.
Some guy yelled at me in his car after the election in 2016.
You too?
Yeah, he was. But he was like Middle Eastern, so it was weird.
But how do you know he was saying, my nigga? You know,
he was like nigger, 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 and I was just like, "Are you white? I don't know how to insult you." And I was like, "Okay." I was driving somewhere.
You know how you insult him? You say, "I voted for Trump." That's how you insult him.
I couldn't even. I was like, "He's not even white. What the hell? What the hell is happening?"
He's trying to fit in. He's trying to melt into the big.
Yeah, but the white people wouldn't accept him. So
yeah, the deplorable melting pot.
Yeah, like I'm like, why are you?
The fucking deplorable.
The Trump effect.
They expect.
I would have shot his goddamn back window out.
I didn't have a gun with me.
I keep mine. I stay strapped all the time everywhere I go.
Oh, speaking of staying strapped, we should mention, folks, for those of you who are gun politics. If you guys want to weigh in on gun politics, no matter black, white, whatever, we'll have our first token white heathen probably on these episodes. But we plan on doing a series on gun control, folks. So hang on to your butts.
Well, we gotta keep it real, Drag. You just said token white heathen, and this is another sad thing I must say. But it's the fucking truth because we keep it real. We're still in the keep it real section, right, Nate?
That's right. Keep it real.
So we got to keep it real here. When it comes to guns and protecting ourselves, white people are so far ahead of the fucking game. You see white men, white women taking their, and not all of these people are racist and all of this type of shit. Not all these people are a part of groups that want to take over the government and all this shit. These people train their kids, man. You know, even if it's just paintballing, they train their kids at young ages to get
weapon safety.
With 30-06s with the gun range. We don't do that, man. We don't do that. Our mentality of protecting ourselves is like, fuck it. It's, we don't care about besides the bullshit, gang banging and ghetto shit. And majority of them don't know how to fucking use guns. That's where they lose most of their goddamn gunfights to police. They shoot it until they be 5 feet
sideways.
Be fucking 5 feet away from each other. Ain't nobody let off 30 fucking rounds. And nobody got hit.
They hold it sideways, cover their eyes, and shoot like this.
Why is your shot group like 3 feet apart? Like,
what the fuck wrong with you, stupid motherfucking niggas, man? You know,
it is.
Shoot. You know what I mean? And get legal. Get fucking legal what you're gonna teach your family, protect your family, and stop doing this stupid shit. And that's why they always lose gun battles, because they don't know how to fucking shoot. So yeah, of course we're gonna have a lot of white people in here talking about that, because most of them, they're just being truthful, in this country, even though we're still a minority, hell, Hispanics have basically surpassed us now in this country. We still at like 13.8%. Hispanics like at 14% now. But I mean, we need to get more conscious on guns and teaching our children about guns and protecting themselves. You know what I mean? I don't give a damn, even if it's protecting yourselves against yourselves. We need to get more, knowledge of it, period. You know what I mean?
Well, Imp, let me cut in here. Listen, everyone. My name is Nate Brody for Dragnot Silvis, Emperor Atheist, and Skeptic Nikki. We got to say good night to all. And again, thanks for stopping by. Listen, all of Skeptic Nikki's information and how to contact her is going to be down in the description of this video. Also, all, join us on Twitter and Facebook.
Make sure y'all buy our stuff.
Hit us up on Patreon, and come next week and show us some of the shirts that you got from Nikki's store. We are thankful to have you, and we thankful to keep watching. Don't forget to share this video, and we will see you later. Any last words from our guest?
Thank you guys for having me. I really hope you have me back soon. I have fun.
Oh, yes, we will.
Oh yeah, this was great. But listen, for the 3 Black Heathens and for Skeptic Nikki, we're gonna see you next time. I gotta point to my camera. I'm pointing like all over here. Here we go. Take care, people. See you next time.
Peace.
Later.
All right, you guys are done. I'm playing the outro right now.
That's the sound of the bullet. That's the sound of the police in my hood.